was thinking about what I should be talking to all of you. Shanta Kumar said, can you talk about logistics? But having spent 33 years in technology, my passion has always been technology. And technology has really grown around us, under us, and we can actually see the changes that are happening every day in our lives with technology. So I had the privilege of actually working for almost 15 years for Mr. N. Chandrasekharan Chandra, as we call him, and he's the chairman of Tata Sons. An incredible visionary who used to put out these nuggets when we were in TCS. And one of the things that he said was, look, every time there is an era, it is always hindsight and written by historians. And people who were in that era would normally not actually have had the ability to see that the sands have shifted right under them. But that's not the case with digital. Because digital, all of you in this room have experienced what's happened the last 10 years. And I would be surprised if anybody, is not looking into your telephone, because it's just not a telephone anymore, right? So you have a digital platform in front of you, and that's changing the way we communicate with each other, with the world, and the way we interact with the world. And it's happening right under our eyes. And we have experienced this epoch happening right under us. So when the historians talk about an industrial revolution or an agricultural revolution or a Mughal era or a Chola era, it is all past history being captured. I think we are very blessed to actually see this era happening right under us and transforming everything that we do in our lives. And that's digital. So I thought I should just talk to you about digital and the way it's transforming business, and why, if at all, you should actually adopt business in the way that you engage with everybody, in your business, in your personal lives. I would probably start with where we are as an economy, right? So globally, I think we are seeing tremendous stress in the economy. We are seeing unprecedented levels of inflation that the Western world has never seen. 2 generations in the Western world have not seen inflation even a quarter of what is happening right now. You know what? We are pretty much inured to all this because we see inflation every year, and we're pretty okay. We are adopted very well. But that's not the case with the Western world. For years, they've had the luxury of outsourcing to China and managing their costs in a most effective way. But a combination of things, including COVID, has come in the way of this accelerated pace. And the Western world is definitely coming to grips with it. When I first went to the US, price of gas was, petrol was about 80 cents to a gallon. When I was there about 4 months back, I think people were very upset that it was $2.69 a gallon. Right now it's $4.99 for a gallon. When I went to the US 3 months back, the supermarkets were empty. The shelves are empty. There isn't much coming in because very little is local produce. It's dependent a lot on the shipping lines and the supply chain to deliver these into the supermarkets. And I'm not talking about TVS supply chain solutions as yet. And if you contrast that with what's happening in India, I think the economy is probably pretty okay. It doesn't have an oblong shape as I would think it is in some of the Western markets. I think a lot of things that are happening here around consumption is pretty good. And I think we probably should consider ourselves as a kind of an oasis, if I can call it that, amidst a lot of dry land. So we should be pretty bullish about what's going to happen in India. If you look at India in general, I think the investment we are doing in digital infrastructure is incredible. We take many things for granted, but what we have done as a nation is something we should be incredibly proud about. And the kind of digital infrastructure we have put in the country, they are population scale. I don't think anybody understands what population scale is, right? I mean, these are systems which can do transactions for 1.3 billion people. And there can't be a better way to test these than out here. And all of us are participating in this economy, and we have businesses, all of you do businesses, which is touching the lives of consumers every day, and inherently working with this infrastructure. So we'll park that and we'll come back to that a bit later. I mean, digital means different things to different people. But I look at digital basically, as 5 things, right? And I'm sure people in the tech field would have probably seen this or heard this. I call it mobile in a sequence: mobile, cloud, social, big data analytics, and artificial intelligence. So let me not bore you with jargon. So let's just assume that this device is as useless as it can be if you're just going to use it to make phone calls, right? I mean, of course, the mobile, that's how it started its journey, as a mobile friend, that I can make calls to anybody, anywhere. And then somebody said you could text, you could do WhatsApp, and so on, and it kept evolving. But it still was a very powerful communication device. And it would have remained so if not for the digital forces coming together. So mobile came somewhere first, and then came the cloud. Right? And the cloud is one big place where you store a lot of things. Absolutely useless, right? You have these bureaus in our house where we put all the stuff which we'll never open ever in our lives. In the saman inge irka, So that's what a cloud does, typically. How many of you even go through the Gmail that is out there? I'm pretty sure all of us have 1,000 pages of Gmail, because it's in the cloud, it's free, it's storing something out there. And if it ever gets filled up, we'll pay about 299 rupees or something, and then extend it by another 50 terabytes if possible. But that's just that. Cloud is just useless, right? It's a place where you store stuff. Unless the mobile can now be married with the cloud. Then it becomes interesting, because then I can access many things anywhere, anytime, whenever I want. And that can become a business model in a way that, many of the businesses that I do, I'll be able to give the, feel and touch to my consumers, because I have a lot of data available to my customers in a very consumable form. And then suddenly somebody came up with this whole idea of social media, right? And social media is, it started with Facebook. I don't know how many of you use Facebook. If you use Facebook, then you belong to the different generation, right? Like my daughter says, "Oh, you're the Facebook gen, Dad." And I thought that was good until I realized, no, that was an insult. Right? So it's about Instagram, and it's about Twitter, and you have to be there. And I'm not in any of these things, right? And I don't know when I last logged on to Facebook. The last time I logged on to Twitter, it had somebody else's picture, and somebody had actually hacked my account. And Twitter says that after so many attempts, we have given up on you, so we are discontinuing your account. So I don't belong to that social media crowd. I would still love to come here and talk to all of you and meet all of you. But there's a different generation out there. And there is definitely merit in social media, because it has opened up the possibilities of what we can do anytime, anywhere, real time. Right? So social media is pretty useless if you don't have cloud. And social media is absolutely useless if you don't have big data, which means if I can't connect to the external world, then social media is also a piece of junk. And then you have big data, which will just remain big data, meaning it's like all the parants in our house, right? Put everything in the cupboard, never to be seen, unless somebody can make sense of that. And that's where big data analytics come into play. And analytics, when I started my journey to where it is now, is mind-boggling. When I started my journey in tech, analytics was used for post-mortem. You looked at what happened, and then you will prepare yourself for the future. But analytics today is about building models of what will happen a year later, right? Because there's so much data, and we can do so much modeling statistically on it. So big data analytics is this big thing. And then there's this whole concept of artificial intelligence, which suddenly starts thinking like a human, and it does a lot of stuff which is both good and otherwise. So I think these are the 5 forces of the digital. And what happened in the last 10 years is they all came together. They all combined to bring an, I don't even know whether they call it exponential value to all of us. Because all of them by themselves had a certain purpose, but when all the 5 forces came together, it completely transformed. And I would like to actually talk to you about how this is changing our lives every day here in India. And I'll give you enough examples of that. So if those were the 5 digital forces, there are 4 other things that you need to keep in mind. One is that, there is data, but it's real time, which means I'm actually getting data real time. Every second, every nanosecond, I know what's happening to different things that are happening in my business, and I'm taking decisions based on that. So there's data, there is real time, and we are all hyper connected. You can sit in an airplane today and do your business because you're hyper connected to your entire enterprise network. And finally, I want to talk about this concept called DMAT. Okay, so these I think are the 4 pillars. There is data, there is real time, there is hyper connectivity, and then there is DMAT. So let me just ask a question if it's okay with all of you, right? How many of you know what DMAT is? Have you guys ever come across this term called DMAT?